The house will go to the children who deserve it, Mom announced, beaming at my siblings across the mahogany dining table. Her diamond necklace, a recent gift from my brother Marcus, caught the light of the crystal chandelier. After all, they're my real children, the ones who understand our family's legacy. The Victorian mansion's formal dining room fell silent except for the gentle clink of expensive china and crystal glasses. All 8,500 square feet of our family home seemed to hold its breath, watching the scene unfold through generations of portraits lining the walls. I maintained my composure, smoothing down my simple black blazer from Zara, a stark contrast to my sister Diana's Chanel dress. At 32, I was the middle child, the perpetual disappointment who wasted her business degree working as a property manager instead of joining Marcus's investment firm or Diana's luxury real estate company. Dad cleared his throat, adjusting his gold cufflinks, another gift from Marcus's successful ventures. Your mother and I think it's best if you start looking for a new place. The house will be on the market next month. I checked my watch 7:58 p.m., right on schedule. Of course, Marcus chimed in, swirling his $500 wine. I can help you find a nice apartment within your budget. His wife Victoria barely concealed her smirk behind her napkin. Diana leaned forward, her diamond bracelet catching the light. There's a decent complex near the mall. The units are small, but they accept monthly payments. I took a slow sip of water, letting their condescension wash over me. They had no idea that 3 months ago, through my holding company Phoenix Properties, I'd purchased not just the mansion but 80% of the city's prime real estate, including the buildings housing both Marcus's and Diana's businesses. Actually, I said quietly, reaching for my phone as it lit up with an incoming call. There's something you should know about the house. What could you possibly know about real estate? Diana scoffed. You manage that sad little apartment complex on Wilson Street. If only they knew that sad little complex was my first experiment in community-focused housing, now replicated across 20 cities. While they chased status symbols, I'd built an empire based on actually helping people. Emily dear, Mom sighed, cutting into her birthday cake, imported from some overpriced French bakery. This is hardly the time for one of your ideas. We've already decided. My phone rang again. I put it on speaker. Miss Harrison. My lawyer's voice filled the room. I have Mr. Patterson from Capital Trust Holdings on the line regarding the mansion's deed transfer. Dad's fork clattered against his plate. What deed transfer? The one completed 3 months ago, I replied calmly, opening my portfolio app. When I purchased the property through Phoenix Properties, the silence that followed was deafening. 5 faces stared at me in various stages of disbelief. That's impossible, Marcus sputtered. Phoenix Properties is the largest real estate conglomerate in the region. They own half the city's commercial property. 60%, actually. I corrected him. Including the Highland Tower where your investment firm rents the top 3 floors. Diana's perfectly manicured hand trembled as she reached for her wine. You're lying. Phoenix Properties is owned by E.J. Harrison. My initials, I explained. Emily Jane Harrison. No, Mom whispered, her face pale. You can't afford. I projected my portfolio onto the dining room wall using my phone. The numbers spoke for themselves. $4.2 billion in assets, 300 properties across the country, and a philanthropic foundation that had built more affordable housing than any other private entity in the state. While you were all focused on appearances, I continued, my voice steady, I was building something real. That sad little complex on Wilson Street. It was my prototype. Now we have similar communities in 20 cities, providing affordable housing to working families while maintaining profit margins that outperform luxury developments. Dad stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. You expect us to believe that you, the one who refused to join the family business that's currently hemorrhaging money due to Marcus's risky investments, I interrupted, pulling up another document, or Diana's company that's 3 months behind on rent. Marcus's face turned red. How did you know about? I know everything, I said, finally letting years of dismissed expertise edge into my voice. I know about the leveraged properties, the shell companies, the creative accounting. Did you really think I spent the last 10 years just collecting rent checks? Victoria, always quick to switch allegiances, turned to me with a desperate smile. Emily darling, we should discuss. No, I cut her off. What we should discuss is your plan to liquidate my mother's trust fund to cover Marcus's gambling debts. Mom's birthday cake sat forgotten as years of carefully maintained facades crumbled around it. The designer clothes and luxury cars suddenly looked like what they were, expensive bandages on failing businesses. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, pulling out a folder. Inside are new lease agreements for both of your companies, terms for restructuring your debt, and a proposal for how we move forward as a family. You have 24 hours to decide. Or what? Diana challenged, but her voice wavered. Or you lose everything, I stated simply. Your offices, your homes, your reputations. The choice is yours. Dad sank back into his chair, looking suddenly old. How long have you been planning this? I haven't been planning anything, I replied honestly. I've been building, growing, learning. While you were all laughing at my little job, I was studying every aspect of property development, management, and investment. The difference is, I focused on creating value instead of just appearances. I stood up, smoothing my simple blazer. You have until this time tomorrow to review the documents. My lawyer will be available to answer any questions. Wait, Mom called as I turned to leave. Where are you going? To the Wilson Street complex, I said. We're having a community dinner to celebrate our new education center. You know, the one you called a waste of valuable real estate last month. The irony hung heavy in the air as I walked out of the formal dining room, leaving behind the half-eaten birthday cake and shattered illusions. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. Education center event ready. Waiting for your speech. As I drove my modest hybrid car toward Wilson Street, I couldn't help but smile. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about revealing truth. While my family had been building a house of cards, I'd built a real empire, one brick at a time. The Wilson Street complex came into view, not the eyesore my family imagined, but a thriving community with manicured gardens, a state-of-the-art education center, and residents who knew their landlord by name. This was my real legacy. My phone buzzed again. A news alert this time. Phoenix Properties announces $500 million investment in affordable housing initiative. Below it, a text from Marcus. We need to talk. Yes, I thought, we certainly do, but this time the conversation would be very different. The education center was packed when I arrived. Children ran through the halls, proudly showing their parents new computers and books. Elderly residents gathered in the community room, sharing stories and meals. This was what real success looked like, not the hollow achievements my family chased, but genuine impact on people's lives. Miss Harrison, Mrs. Rodriguez, our resident community coordinator, waved me over. Everyone's waiting for your speech about the expansion project. I took my place at the podium, looking out at the faces of people who had become my real family over the years. These were the people who had believed in my vision, who had helped make Phoenix Properties more than just another real estate company. 10 years ago, I began. Someone told me I didn't understand real estate, that I was wasting my time managing a sad little complex. They were right about one thing. I didn't understand real estate the way they did. I understood it better. The crowd chuckled, unaware of the drama unfolding across town in a mansion that suddenly seemed very small and empty. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Dad. We need to talk about the future. Indeed we did. But first I had a community to serve, and a vision to share. The future, after all, belonged to those who built it, not those who merely claimed it. As I continued my speech, outlining plans for similar communities across the country, I thought about the birthday dinner I'd just left. My family had always measured success in square footage and designer labels. They never understood that true wealth wasn't about what you owned, but what you built. Tomorrow they would learn that lesson. But tonight was about celebration, not of endings but of beginnings. And as I looked out at the smiling faces before me, I knew I had built something far more valuable than any mansion could ever be. The real estate empire I'd built wasn't just about properties and profits. It was about people and possibilities. While my family had been selling exclusivity, I'd been creating opportunity. While they'd been building walls, I'd been building bridges. And so I concluded my speech. This is just the beginning. Because real success isn't measured in dollars or square footage. It's measured in lives changed and communities transformed. The applause that followed wasn't as polished as the kind you'd hear at a country club, but it was infinitely more genuine. Just like everything else I'd built, including the truth my family would have to face tomorrow. My phone buzzed again with messages from Marcus and Diana, but they could wait. Tonight belonged to the real success story, not the one my family had failed to see, but the one I'd built while they weren't looking. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and conversations, but for now I had a community to celebrate with, and a future to build. After all, that's what real children do. They create legacies worth inheriting. The next morning, I arrived at my downtown office at precisely 7 a.m. Not the cramped property management office my family thought I worked in, but the entire top floor of Phoenix Tower, 40 stories of gleaming glass and steel that dominated the city skyline. Your family is already here, my executive assistant Sarah informed me as I stepped off the private elevator. All of them. They've been waiting since 6:30. I smiled, remembering countless family dinners where they'd made me wait. Let them wait a bit longer. Do we have the files ready? Everything's prepared in the conference room. Sarah nodded, handing me a tablet, including the proof of Marcus's gambling debts and Diana's defaulted loans. The conference room's glass walls offered a perfect view of the city skyline, including both Marcus's investment firm and Diana's real estate office, both buildings now owned by Phoenix Properties. At 7:30 precisely, I walked into the conference room. The contrast was striking, my family in their designer clothes, looking exhausted and uncertain, while I wore my usual simple professional attire. Nice office. Marcus attempted his usual smugness, but his voice cracked. Must be new. 5 years old actually, I replied, taking my seat at the head of the table. You would have known if you'd ever asked about my work instead of dismissing it. Mom clutched her Hermes bag, like a shield. Emily, surely we can discuss this as a family. That's exactly what we're doing, I interrupted, pulling up documents on the room's displays. Let's start with Marcus's situation. The screens filled with transaction records. Marcus's face went pale. In the past 3 years, you've lost $47 million of client money through unauthorized gambling, I stated. You've been covering it up by creating fake returns and moving money between accounts. The SEC would be very interested in this information. You wouldn't, Marcus whispered. I'm your brother, the same brother who told me I didn't understand real business last Christmas. I raised an eyebrow, but you're right. I wouldn't, not without giving you a chance to make it right. I switched to another document. This is a restructuring plan for your firm. You'll step down as CEO, return all stolen funds, and work under supervision to rebuild your company legitimately. Phoenix Properties will cover the shortfall, in exchange for 60% ownership. That's robbery, Dad exploded. No, what Marcus did was robbery, I corrected. This is salvation. Take it or face federal charges. Diana leaned forward. And what about my company? The screens changed again. Your company hasn't paid rent in 3 months. You've been inflating property values and taking kickbacks from contractors. Not quite as dramatic as Marcus's crimes, but still illegal. I slid folders across the table. Similar deal. Phoenix Properties takes majority ownership. You stay on as a managed partner, and we handle the legal implications. And the house? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. The house stays in the family, I said softly, but under new terms. No more extravagant parties to impress people. No more looking down on common work. It becomes a family home again. A real one. Victoria, ever the opportunist, spoke up. What about those of us who married into the family? You mean those who knew about the fraud and said nothing? I questioned. You'll be subject to the same oversight as your spouses. Clean operations or no operations at all. Dad stood up, his face red. You can't just take control of everything we've built. I'm not taking control of what you built. I cut him off. I'm saving what's left of it. While you were all focused on appearances, I built something real. Phoenix Properties isn't just bigger than all your companies combined. It's better. We make actual differences in communities. We create value, not just profit. I pulled up one final document. This is a family contract. It lays out how we move forward. No more dismissing anyone's contributions. No more measuring worth by clothing brands or car prices. We become a real family, or you can all walk away with nothing but your designer clothes. The room fell silent. Through the glass walls, I could see my empire stretching across the city, not just buildings, but communities. Lives changed, futures built. Why didn't you tell us, Mom asked finally, about any of this? Would you have believed me? I asked simply. When I started at Wilson Street, you all laughed. When I talked about community-focused development, you called it naive. When I suggested sustainable business practices, you dismissed them as impractical. So I stopped telling and started doing. Marcus slumped in his chair. How did you even build all this? By actually working, I explained. While you were booking tables at exclusive clubs, I was learning every aspect of property development and management. While Diana was buying designer handbags, I was reinvesting every penny into community improvement. I built this empire brick by brick, lease by lease, community by community. I stood up, straightening my blazer. You have until noon to sign the agreements. After that, the offers expire, and I'll have no choice but to let the consequences fall where they may. And if we sign? Diana asked. Then we rebuild, not just the businesses, but the family. Real success, real relationships, real legacy. I moved toward the door. The choice is yours. As I left the conference room, I heard the rustle of papers and quiet discussions begin. Sarah met me at my office door. The Wilson Street Community Center called, she reported. The after-school program you funded is ready to launch. They'd like you to visit. I smiled. Schedule it for this afternoon. That's the kind of success worth celebrating. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Rodriguez. The kids made thank you cards for their new computers. When can you come see them? This was the empire I'd really built. Not just properties and profits, but hope and opportunity. My family could choose to be part of it or not, but either way, I would continue building something that mattered. At 11:55, Sarah appeared in my doorway. They're all signing. I nodded, not surprised. Despite their flaws, my family wasn't stupid. They knew this was their best and only option. Have legal process everything, I instructed, and schedule a family dinner for Sunday at the Wilson Street Community Center. It's time they saw what real success looks like. As my family filed out of the conference room, each looking somewhat shell-shocked, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the glass walls. Designer clothes and simple blazer, old money and new vision, past and future. Mom paused at my office door. I always wondered why you never seemed to care about status or luxury. Now I understand. You were building something bigger than all of that. Not bigger, I corrected her. Better, and if you're willing to learn, I'll show you how. She nodded slowly, then turned to leave. As the private elevator carried them down, I looked out over my city. Not a collection of properties, but a network of communities. This was just the beginning. My phone buzzed again. A message from the Wilson Street Education Center. The coding class for seniors is full. They're asking when you'll come teach again. I smiled, remembering my family's dismissive comments about my sad little complex. They never understood that true wealth isn't measured in square footage or stock portfolios, but in lives changed and communities transformed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, teaching my family about real business, real value, real success. But for now, I had a coding class to prepare for, because that's what real legacy builders do. They build futures, not facades, and mine was just beginning. 1 month after the conference room confrontation, I stood in the Wilson Street Community Center's main hall, watching my family's first real interaction with what I'd built. The scene before me was nothing short of remarkable. Marcus, stripped of his designer suit and wearing business casual, was teaching a financial literacy class to a group of eager residents. His hands shook slightly as he wrote on the whiteboard, but his voice grew stronger with each explanation. And this, he said, pointing to a diagram, is how predatory lending can trap you in debt. But there are always alternatives. He glanced at me, a mix of shame and understanding in his eyes. I should know. Diana, meanwhile, was in the garden area, her pristine manicure forgotten as she helped elderly residents plan their community vegetable plots. She traded her Louboutins for practical shoes, and for the first time in years her smile seemed genuine. "The tomatoes will do best along this wall," she explained, sketching a layout. "And we can set up a small farmer's market in the courtyard once they're ready." Mom and Dad sat with Mrs. Rodriguez, reviewing applications for the expanded education program. The pearls were gone from Mom's neck, replaced by a simple name tag that read Volunteer Coordinator. "These stories," Mom whispered, wiping a tear as she read another application. "I had no idea people in our own city were struggling so much to get an education." Sarah appeared at my side with the quarterly reports. "Phoenix Properties' community-focused developments are showing a 40% higher return on investment than traditional luxury properties," she reported. "The sustainable model is working exactly as you predicted." I nodded, remembering all the times my family had dismissed my naive business approach. "Send copies to the board, and schedule a meeting with potential investors for the nationwide expansion." The community center buzzed with activity. Children rushed past with books from the new library, seniors gathered for computer classes, and young entrepreneurs met with mentors in the business incubator space. Victoria, who'd initially resisted the change most strongly, was now leading a resume writing workshop. "Your experience matters," she told a young mother. "We just need to present it effectively." My phone buzzed with a message from our development team. 3 new sites identified for community complexes. Ready for your review." Before I could respond, Marcus approached, his earlier confidence somewhat deflated. "Can we talk?" We moved to my small office. Not the executive suite he'd expected, but a modest space filled with community project plans and thank you cards from residents. "I get it now," he said quietly, sinking into a chair. "What you were building here. It's not just about property or profit, it's about purpose." I finished. "Real value. Not just for shareholders but for people." He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "All those years we thought we were the successful ones. But we were just playing at business, weren't we? While you were actually building something meaningful." "It's not too late to build something real," I replied, pulling out a proposal. "The gambling addiction program you suggested, the board approved it. We're converting the old recreation room into a counseling center." His eyes widened. "You're letting me run it?" "Under supervision," I clarified. "But yes, you understand the problem better than most. Use that knowledge to help others avoid the same traps." Through the window we could see Diana leading a tour of potential residents. Her voice carried clearly. "This isn't just an apartment complex, it's a community. A place to grow, learn, and build a future." "She's different," Marcus observed. "We all are. Crisis has a way of stripping away pretense," I said. "The question is, what do you build in its place?" A knock at the door interrupted us. Dad entered, looking older but somehow lighter without his expensive suit and gold accessories. "The Education Center Board approved our proposal," he announced. "Full scholarships for 10 students, funded by selling that ridiculous country club membership." I smiled, remembering his past lectures about maintaining appearances at that very club. "How does it feel to create opportunity instead of just flaunting privilege?" He sat heavily. "Humbling. All those years wasted on status symbols when we could have been doing this." My phone buzzed again. Another message from Mrs. Rodriguez. "The Youth Entrepreneurship Program is oversubscribed. Can we expand capacity?" "Actually," Marcus spoke up, "I might have an idea about that. My old office space, it's still empty, right? What if we converted it into a business education center?" I raised an eyebrow. "You'd give up your corner office?" "It was never really mine anyway," he shrugged. "Might as well use it for something worthwhile." Through the window we could see Mom organizing a donation drive, her designer handbag replaced by a practical tote filled with sign-up sheets and program schedules. "She's been here every day this week," Dad said softly. "Says she's making up for lost time." "We all are," Marcus added. My phone lit up with another update. "Community health clinic proposal ready for review." Diana's real estate expertise proved invaluable in location analysis. The transformation of my family over the past month had been remarkable. From their initial shock and resistance to genuine engagement with the communities they'd once looked down on. It wasn't perfect. Old habits died hard. But it was real progress. Victoria appeared in the doorway, excitement breaking through her usually controlled facade. 3 of my resume workshop participants got job interviews. Real ones, not just courtesy meetings. Speaking of jobs, I said, pulling up a document on my tablet. The board approved your proposal for the professional mentoring program. You'll head it up, reporting directly to community services. Her eyes widened. But I've never run anything except social events. You've never had the chance, I corrected. Now you do. Make it count. As if on cue, Diana burst in, her face flushed with excitement. The Urban Farming Initiative? The City Council approved it. We can start converting all the unused lots. I watched my family's animated discussion of community projects and development plans, remembering the birthday dinner that had changed everything just a month ago. The designer clothes and status symbols were gone, replaced by genuine purpose and excitement. There's something else, I announced, drawing their attention. The National Housing Coalition wants to use our model as a template for community development across the country. They're offering funding for 50 new locations. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. 50 communities like this, Mom whispered from the doorway, where she'd been listening. 50 chances to get it right. More than that, I corrected. 50 opportunities to prove that business can do more than generate profit. It can transform lives. Marcus straightened in his chair. The financial literacy program, we could scale it nationally. Real education about money, not just exploitation. The Urban Farming Initiative could address food deserts, Diana added. And the business incubator could support local entrepreneurs. I watched them brainstorm, their excitement building as they finally understood what I'd seen all along. The true potential of combining business success with community impact. But first, I interrupted their planning. We need to prove we can make it work here, consistently, without falling back into old patterns. They sobered, nodding in understanding. The past month had taught them humility, but also hope. They'd seen firsthand how their skills, stripped of pretense and privilege, could actually make a difference. My phone buzzed one final time. Community center at capacity. Expansion plans needed. I looked at my family, not the polished, empty shells from the birthday dinner, but people finally discovering their real worth and potential. Ready to build something that matters? I asked. Their response was unanimous, not in designer clothes or expensive gestures, but in rolled-up sleeves and determined nods. Outside, the Wilson Street complex hummed with activity. Children learning, seniors teaching, communities growing. This was what real success looked like. Not a facade of wealth, but a foundation of value. And my family finally was ready to help build it. 6 months after the birthday dinner that changed everything, I stood on the stage of the National Community Development Conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. In the front row sat my family, unrecognizable from their former selves. Marcus wore a simple suit, his AA sobriety chip visible on his lapel. The gambling addiction program he'd started had already helped 32 people regain control of their lives. Diana sat beside him, tablet in hand, reviewing plans for the 20th Urban Farming Initiative. Mom and Dad, dressed in business casual, beamed with genuine pride, not at status symbols, but at actual achievements. 5 years ago, I began. Someone told me that real estate was about exclusivity and luxury. Today I'm here to tell you why they were wrong. The screens behind me lit up with images of Phoenix Properties communities across the country. Not just buildings, but thriving ecosystems of opportunity and growth. In the past 6 months, our community-focused development model has been implemented in 30 cities. Crime rates have dropped by 40% in these areas. Educational achievement has risen by 65%. Small business creation has tripled. I clicked to the next slide, showing the Wilson Street complex, our original prototype, and now the national model for sustainable community development. But the numbers only tell part of the story. The real success is in the lives transformed. Like Marcus Harrison, my brother who turned his understanding of addiction into a program that's helped dozens break free from gambling debt. Marcus straightened in his seat. 6 months of sobriety and genuine purpose visible in his bearing. Or Diana Harrison, who discovered that her real estate expertise could create urban farming initiatives that have provided fresh food to over 10,000 families in food deserts. Diana wiped a tear, her designer handbag long replaced by a tablet full of community project plans. And Victoria Harrison, whose social networking skills now connect unemployed residents with job opportunities, resulting in over 500 successful placements. The audience applauded, but I wasn't finished. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was in our understanding of what success really means. It's not about square footage or stock portfolios. It's about square feet of hope planted, portfolios of dreams invested in. I revealed the final slide, our nationwide expansion plan. Today I'm announcing the Phoenix Community Initiative. Over the next 5 years, we'll replicate this model in 200 cities across the country. Not just building properties, but building possibilities. The applause was thunderous, but my eyes were on my family. Mom was crying openly. Dad's hand clasped tightly in hers. The shame of their past attitudes had been replaced by genuine pride in their new purpose. After the speech, we gathered in the conference center's garden, another urban farming initiative that Diana had helped design. Did you ever imagine, Marcus asked, helping a local resident harvest tomatoes, that losing everything would lead to gaining so much more? Mom looked up from her tablet, where she was reviewing applications for the next education center. We didn't lose everything, dear. We just finally found what was actually valuable. Speaking of valuable, Diana interjected, pulling up a report. The urban farming network is now self-sustaining. We're producing enough food to supply local restaurants and still provide for community needs. Victoria joined us, her phone buzzing with job placement notifications. 3 more residents just got hired at the new tech center. Full benefits, career track positions. Dad, who'd been quietly tending to some herbs, straightened up. Remember when we thought success was about keeping people out? Now look at us, measuring it by how many we can help up. My phone lit up with a message from Sarah. Wilson Street Community Center at 100% capacity. Residents requesting satellite location in East District. About that, I said, gathering my family closer. The board has approved a new phase of expansion. But this time, I want each of you to lead a division. Their faces showed no trace of their former arrogance, only earnest commitment to the work they'd grown to love. Marcus, the addiction recovery program is ready for national rollout. 20 cities are waiting for your model. He nodded solemnly, touching his sobriety chip. We'll do it right. No cutting corners, no empty promises. Real help for real people. Diana, the urban farming initiative has attracted federal attention. They want to implement it in food deserts nationwide. She was already pulling up maps on her tablet. We can start with the highest need areas. Train local residents as program leaders. Victoria, the job placement program is being studied by the Department of Labor as a new standard for community employment services. She smiled, her former social climbing replaced by genuine networking for good. We can scale it up, add skills training components. And Mom, Dad, I turned to my parents. The education center model is ready for expansion. 30 cities want to replicate our success. They exchanged glances, years of misplaced priorities falling away. We won't let you down. Mom said softly, not again. As the sun set over the conference center garden, I watched my family engage with community members, discussing plans, sharing ideas, building real connections. The designer clothes and status symbols were long gone, replaced by purpose and genuine achievement. My phone buzzed one final time. A message from Mrs. Rodriguez back at Wilson Street. The kids want to know when their favorite teachers are coming back. They miss the whole family. I looked at my family, really looked at them. Marcus, earnestly discussing recovery strategies with a local counselor. Diana, sketching urban farm layouts with community leaders. Victoria, connecting residents with job opportunities. Mom and Dad, proudly sharing stories of student successes. This was the true legacy we'd built, not one of exclusion and privilege, but of inclusion and possibility. Not towers of glass and steel, but foundations of hope and opportunity. Ready to head back, I asked them. Wilson Street misses its family. Their response was immediate and unanimous, not in words but in actions, gathering their work materials, saying warm goodbyes to community members, already planning tomorrow's projects. As we left the conference center, I remembered that birthday dinner 6 months ago. The mansion that had seemed so important now felt small compared to the communities we'd built. The designer labels that had meant everything now meant nothing, next to the real marks we were making on the world. We had lost a house of privilege, but gained a home in purpose, and that, I realized, was the greatest success story of all. The end.